Good evening and welcome to the Berlin Board of Education meeting for October 13th, 2020. We are actually having our first public meeting since March with an audience, but we'll have a handful of people here with us tonight, but we did have some people reach out to us through email and other correspondence. So I think we'll get started today with our Pledge of Allegiance. Lindsay, you going to lead us? Thank you, Lindsay. Everybody is present at the moment with the exception of Mr. Oakes and Mrs. Maloney. Before we get started with the meeting tonight, I just want to bring up something that was in the Citizen. Oh, here, Mr. Oakes is here now. Many of the people that watch the meetings and have been corresponding with us may have noticed that there was a notice for interviewing new potential board members that appeared in the Citizen, and I believe was also posted. Brian, where else did we post that? On the town website, correct? On the town. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. On the town website. And Facebook. Thank you. I just want to give a little bit of context to this. So just so people are aware, the election obviously is a month away. We advertised that we are going to be having 3 new members. So the reason behind all of this, there are 4 people that are up for re-election this particular year. Carrie Sasso, Tim Oakes are both running for re-election. Mary Ellen is not running for re-election, and neither am I. So those are 2 additional openings that are going to be held, that will be filled by the interview process, and people that fill in another person's stint will be there for 1 year. So it'll be there until the following November. I have really enjoyed my time. I was going to give Mary Ellen a second to say something, but she's not here yet, unfortunately. I've really enjoyed the time to be able to serve the community in 3 years that I've had here. The last year as president, but the 3 years has been a pleasure. It's been something that I've always wanted to do, and I felt like I had something to offer. I hope that Brian or the other board members felt like I had something to offer, but I'm very proud to have added this to my experiences in life. So I thank everybody for giving me the opportunity, and I will miss it. It just became overwhelming with 2 different districts at the same time, going through all of the complexities that we're going through to balance this another 3 years. I may be back. Depending on when I retire in 10 years, maybe I'll be back. But we are interviewing 3 slots. 1 slot will take place immediately. One of those 3, that was for Matthew Tenza, who resigned about a month ago now, I believe. So one of those is an immediate opening. The other 2 openings will occur after the election, because we know, based on the number of people that will be on the ballot, that there will be 2 additional openings after the election is completed. So good luck to Tim and Carrie, by the way. All right, let's move into our reports. The student representatives, Ryan emailed me last night, said he wasn't able to be here because he had a soccer game. Lindsay came to us today. Lindsay, what do you got for us?
So our tech team is now able to live stream our soccer and volleyball games. So those are available for the public. And cross country is also taking place at Pistol Creek. And our football team is doing 7v7 games in place of their normal season. This Wednesday, tomorrow, is PSAT day for the juniors and sophomores. So the seniors and the freshmen are online for the day. The BHS conferences were held this past week and more on the 22nd, and all are virtual through Zoom. And there are now plans in the works to hold a virtual fall play and cabaret performance in the next coming month.
A virtual fall play and cabaret?
Yes.
That's very interesting.
Yes.
I'm very curious to see how that comes out. That's fantastic. Thank you, Lindsay. Appreciate it. Committee reports. Carrie, since we just left our committee, in the curriculum committee, would you like to give a brief synopsis, please?
Sure. So the curriculum committee met just prior to this meeting, as Rich just noted, and Dr. McGurk and Mrs. Eustace joined us for all, if not part of that meeting. Eustace provided an update on the Honors College and some potential new and revised courses. We also reviewed our committee goals, discussed and objectives, and set those. We will return with a presentation of those to the larger board, I think at our next meeting, correct?
26th.
26th. And also, Dr. McGurk reviewed the district improvement plan with us as well, which we will revisit as a larger board also.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Julia, Community Engagement Committee, have you had any meetings?
We have not. I've been emailing with Debbie to set that up.
All right, and Mr. Oakes, Finance and Operations.
Yes, thank you. We had a meeting last Friday to talk about the capital plan requests and the site and building requests, which everyone has before them. We're going to be talking about it more later on to go into some deeper detail on it. But it's an attempt to get this stuff out in front of the town as early as we can, with the hopes that some of it might actually be funded. Fingers crossed.
Thank you.
But again, we'll chat more later.
All right, excellent. The CREC report, Tracy, I believe at the last meeting you said there was going to be a CREC meeting. Did one happen?
Yeah, nothing to report really right now.
All right, thank you. Correspondence to the board, Mr. Benigni.
Yes, I have one correspondence to the board. This is Mike Compasso. He is a security guard here at the high school. Thank you for the beautiful plant. We appreciate everything. It's a difficult time.
Thank you. So now we're into audience of citizens. Before I ask the people that are in front of us if they have anything that they would like to add to our audience of citizens, I would like to read the one email. And I did leave, despite the fact that we were public tonight, I knew that some people are still not comfortable coming out in public, so I wanted to leave the email option open for communication. And I got one, and actually it's a really good question because it's something we've discussed briefly, and I know it's come up in a lot of people's informal conversations. Debbie Olson wrote to me earlier today, now that hybrid has been extended, and I know you've sent out the message to parents that we're gonna reevaluate after Christmas break, after the winter break, will there still be snow days? So what is the official directive from the State Department of Education?
At this point, the state has not said that we can't have snow days and have those be virtual. The commissioner did make a comment, but he's not officially passed, so that will be something that is supposed to be discussed prior to where we would have a snow day. The thought is, though, that we would be able to use our virtual learning environment to not have snow days, but it is something that has to be officially approved by the State Board of Education.
It would seem like that has to be a conversation that's going to be happening shortly as we move toward the weather, especially some of the cold days like today. Okay. Is there anybody who would like to step up and make a statement or ask a question to the board in person?
Good evening, John Richards, 239 Hawthorne Drive. To the President, please, consideration in your new business of item 6D, if it would be possible to move it up to the second item. I'm doing a double shift here tonight. I'm here at the board meeting, and then I go to the Board of Finance meeting, which starts at 7. This 6D is the capital and site and building that Mr. Oakes spoke to, and I'm hoping that I could hear that discussion before I have to depart for Board of Finance. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So you want D moved within the new business realm up to the top, essentially, before you have to go. Will that give you enough time? Okay. All right, before we get to that part, we have a few personnel reports. We have a few retirements, actually. No? We did. I wasn't going to do it yet, but we can do it now. That's fine. I was going to wait till we get to new business, but why don't we? No, it's fine. Let's do it. So we'd like to, I have a motion, or would somebody like to make a motion, perhaps, to move item D?
I make a motion to move item 6D in place of 6A. Does that?
Well, not in place of, but to go
in
before.
advance of, sorry.
Yes.
In advance of 6A.
Anybody second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're going to move 6D up to the top, and that will become the new 6A. All right. Thank you, you guys. Held me honest there. All right. We have several retirement, actually, notices. Debbie Lamond, a remote teacher and library media specialist at Hubbard, has submitted her letter of intent to retire at the end of the school year. Brian.
Yes, Deb Lamont has been a classroom teacher as well as a library media specialist at Hubbard. and the technology integration teacher at Hubbard for many years. This year, being that we needed additional teachers for the remote learning at the elementary, we asked Deb to step in and to go back to the classroom, which is where she started, and fulfill that role. Unfortunately, it's her last year before she retires in that role. Deb has been a can-do employee and is doing an excellent job with that.
Excellent. I believe we have a motion. Anybody?
I move to accept the retirement of Debbie Lamond, remote teacher, library media specialist at Richard D. Hubbard School, effective June 30th, 2021. Also to thank her for the 31 years of service she has provided to the youth of Berlin and wish her good health and happiness in her retirement years. She is lovely, and I'm certain she'll be missed.
Excellent. Second?
I'll second.
Second by Tim. All those in favor? Aye. That was unanimous. Another one. Stephanie Began, teacher of special education at McGee, has submitted her letter of intent to retire at the end of the 2021 school year.
Stephanie Began has been a special ed teacher at McGee for a number of years. Stephanie stated that she started teaching in 1976 in her letter and said that's a long time and it's time to retire. Stephanie's been exceptional with the students. Again, can-do attitude, different roles throughout the years. I worked with Stephanie at McGee for all those years, and she'll definitely be missed. She has a great rapport with students and is able to really reach students in a manner that's positive and productive. So congratulations, Stephanie.
Is she at McGee? It says Hubbard. Is she at
No,
Hubbard right now?
Stephanie is at McGee.
Okay, so this should be written
Yep.
McGee. Okay. So we have a motion in front of us, and whoever's going to make the motion, the school name is incorrect in the motion. It should be McGee.
So I move to accept the retirement of Stephanie Began, teacher of special education at Catherine M. McGee School, effective June 30th, 2021. Also to thank her for the 22 years of service she has provided to the youth of Berlin and wish her good health and happiness in her retirement years.
I will second.
Second by Mr. Oakes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck, Stephanie, and thank you very much. 1976 is a very long time. You're right. One more. Teacher of phys ed, Nancy Cavalieri at Griswold, has submitted her letter of intent to retire at the end of the 2021 year. I think all three of my kids had Nancy going through for phys ed. Brian?
So Nancy has taught for the last 20 years at Griswold, but also has helped out at Hubbard in the last years, filling in for the phys ed at Hubbard. Nancy, again, this year with the situation, has been asked to fulfill a number of other roles beyond phys ed, which she is willingly doing for the district and for the kids. Nancy has kind of been that utility player with phys ed and where we need her in the district, and we thank Nancy for all of the work that she's done over the years.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? You could make it 3 for 3, Carrie. All right.
Move to accept the retirement of Nancy Cavalier, teacher of physical education at Mary E. Griswold School, effective June 30th, 2021. Also to thank her for the 20 years of service she has provided to the youth of Berlin and to wish her good health and happiness in her retirement years.
Second, anyone?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Also unanimous. That's a lot of veteran teachers we're losing at the end of this year, so there'll be some openings for some new people coming in, but we will miss them. It's difficult to replace the experience. Moving into the consent agenda. Do we have any amendments or deletions to the consent agenda? Hearing none, rather. A motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Second by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. And now we are moving into new business. All right. So earlier we moved 6D and moved that into the new 6A. So at this point, we're talking about the approval of capital equipment and site and building budget requests. Mr. Cugno.
Good evening, folks. There were a couple things that I was going to report on the facilities update, which directly relate to the comments on the capital and site plan. So I'll just kind of blend everything together, if that's okay, because a couple of comments I was going to make earlier are going to fall right into having you understand more of the capital and site plan. Lately, we've started the budget process for 2021, 2022. You'll remember that we start the process usually in October and November. We develop a budget and move forward for one that starts next July and goes the following 12 months. Part of that process, and the part that happens first in Berlin, is to look at site and building requests from the principals, department heads, and also to look at the capital requests from the board to go to the, well, we'll go to finance board, but we'll first go to the committee for capital planning and management. A couple things I'd like to mention first that are a background for us to move forward, and I reported this also when it was discussed at the Finance and Operating Committee the other day, is we have received the draft plan, draft update to our facilities from Fryer. You remember a few months ago we commissioned that report. It was completed in a draft form. It isn't in final yet, but I wanted to let you know that we have I haven't passed this out for any of you at this point, although the committee members have one. This is one report. There are 5 of them that are the same size, one for each one of our facilities. They're pretty in-depth relative to information and give some level of cost estimates and some ideas and recommendations for us to continue to consider going forward. You have in front of you tonight a exhibit that says code analysis and building and ground survey. That's a summary that was put together out of this draft that was done for each of the facilities. And we're going to use this to speak to the town, the facilities department, and also the board on what we may be requesting as capital plan issues. So there's 2 things you have in front of you tonight. Well, let me just also say there's one other thing, because it'll come up. You may have heard that the town council the other night approved about $198,000 for the town to go out and contract to do a ventilation study for the 5 schools. This comes from the guidelines of the state of Connecticut. We wanted to get a benchmark of where we are in our facilities right now, and then be able to decide what we have to do, if anything, going forward. I know there's people in town and teachers and so on and so forth that are very interested in this, so I wanted to let you know that the town is moving forward with that study, and that study includes 3 different firms, but more importantly, it should be done, or at least is expected to be done by the end of the year. So by the end of the year and before the full budget process starts with review of every piece, including capital plan, we'll know what is recommended by those professionals relative to ventilation, if anything. So basically, what the F&O committee reviewed for building and site, and the reason we do it together is because we ask our department heads and principals to think of everything that they would like to recommend based on facilities and site. Some of those things go to the capital planning committee to be reviewed, to be put on the capital plan, which could be funded by the town, could be bonded, a number of things could happen. The other portions of that, after review, go into our general budget. You may remember from last year that, again, whatever doesn't go on the capital plan relative to equipment, facilities, site, and building, because it either doesn't get approved by the capital plan management committee, or it's too, not necessarily a small project, but a cost of a project that's under $25,000. So our job, the reason we ask for it all at once is because then we review at the level of the superintendent, at the level of the business office, and the F&O committee what these requests are, so we can separate them out relative to capital plan requests and normal budget requests. So that's why you have both things in front of you tonight. You have the code analysis from Fryer. You also have a list from, excuse me a minute. This is tough without having something to put these down on. BOE initial principal site and building requests, and then also one for capital plan. I'm not asking you to certainly review these right now. I want you to have them for your file and for continuing conversation as we go on, but this is what the F&O committee was looking at the other day. Basically, what the F&O committee had decided to do, and there's a number of things here, and very frankly, in some cases, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars work to be done. In some cases, there are millions of dollars worth of work to be done. Remember, our job is to get on the table with the town and with the community the type of improvements our facilities need going forward. So this is the part where you ask for everything. Doesn't necessarily mean the town's going to do all of it, doesn't necessarily mean we have the money to do all of it, but the conversation starts on what are the priorities and how we're going to prioritize things this year from not only the Board of Ed standpoint, but also from the town standpoint. And then what may have to be done in year 2, 3, 4, and et cetera. So that's the capital planning process. It's important to note that at the moment, what we need to do, because the town manager has requested that the initial requests from every department, including the Board of Ed, for capital plan, which means the largest projects, be submitted to them by this Friday. So, what really I would like to get tonight after discussion and after hopefully answering questions and so on and so forth, is to get a receipt of these estimates for review and continue to vet those things, but also to the authority to submit to the capital plan management committee our requests for capital. And those generally would be lined out here, because of each one of these reports you have not only capital in one section, but you have a site and building in the other. Site and building would go to the superintendent and the budget committee, also F&O committee, on putting in our normal budget. So it's a lot of information. I'm just talking today mostly process, but I would like the authority to at least move forward with the capital management committee on our initially proposed improvements to our facilities under the capital plan. They are numerous. A lot of them are expensive. That's what capital planning is all about. And I think it will expand with some very good information what we believe the capital plan should be looking at in its 5 education facilities. And once again, you should be complimented for putting together this FRIAR, for at least engaging this FRIAR report, because it allows the Board of Ed to go speak to the Capital Plan and Management Committee and the Town Council and the Board of Finance with professional information reviewing our facilities and what our recommendations for what they call short-term maintenance, but short-term could be a year or two, but there's some major things here. I can try to answer any questions on any of the issues you have in front of you, but generally that's my report.
I have 2 quick questions on the actual document, and then if anybody else has any questions. You said that capital items are anything over 25,000 or more, correct?
Yes.
But the Wi-Fi on here says 20,000 at Sage Park. Why is that on the capital list if it's
Well,
over 20,000?
You know, rules are rules, and they give you some requirements, but because the dollar amount that came originally with Wi-Fi is $20,000, that could be, one or two things could happen. That could decide, because it's a field and because there's probably more improvements that may need to go with that and maybe more expensive, it could be put into capital plan. So I wanted to have it addressed up there anyways. If it doesn't get addressed there, then it will move down to our budget and would be part of our IT department budget.
Thank you.
Again, the idea is to make sure the town and the people that are going to be making decisions understand what we want. You know, we can break the rules a little bit on putting something in front of them and say that it might cost more than 20.
And as you stated, you're not really sure. There could be more under the surface as you begin the work at Sage. Okay.
Everything now is an estimate.
All right.
All these numbers have to be vetted.
The only other thing I had, the question was on the word plus. You have 3 of these things that just say plus.
Yes. That was brought up by the Finance and Operation
Okay.
Committee. One of the things that was put in front of us by staff and by the business office were these 3 electrical improvements in lighting. And what we understand after discussion is, because most of the people on the Finance Board, the Finance and Operating Committee thought that was a little expensive for this issue without a large explanation. What we found out is that, number one, that's not a number we want to use for those things. They are very, very important, but it's not a number we want to use because that number was taken off the state contract list and was not specific to anything we were doing, but you try to get something on a table. I think, and so do a lot of other people, that's a lot more. We have asked for a estimate on that. We didn't receive it by tonight, so I just want to let you know it'll be put on there, and we should have it within a week's time.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Any other, I know the F&O committee has looked at this stuff in detail already. Tim or Adam, I don't know if you have anything you want to offer from this or if anybody else has questions that they would like to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, I think for purposes of ball rolling, I'm going to move to approve the capital equipment and site and building budget requests as presented for submission to the town of Berlin.
Second.
Seconded by Adam. Discussion?
As Jeff said,
Yeah.
we did talk about this stuff on Friday. We did have similar questions on some of the things in terms of the lighting. And as Jeff also said, these numbers are hopefully the worst case numbers that we're looking at in a lot of these from the capital plan requests. The Friar is possibly a different discussion. Some of those capital plan items are possibly going to take a little bit longer to get implemented because they are bigger ticket numbers. But it at least gets that thought process out in people's minds that we need to refinish floors or verify wiring or test grounding or whatever it may be for all these different things. The hope is that we can get these going from a capital plan perspective as well as with the Board of Finance's assistance into the 10-year plan. Some of these things can wait a little bit longer on the 10-year plan. Some of these things cannot. So that will be, I think, part of the battle that Jeff will fight with the capital committee is making sure they understand the severity of some of these items, right? We could live maybe a couple of years with the stage curtain not being replaced. I'm sorry, Sal, I had to say it. But the emergency alert lights are probably pretty important, from a safety compliance perspective. So, Adam, anything?
Just, I guess, a bigger question, because it was certainly something that we discussed specifically were the science rooms within McGee School, because having traveled through McGee a few times now with my children, obviously, I think those are the same rooms that were there even before I went there. And I know that you've put together a little presentation here. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to go through that now as part of this discussion. It might be helpful, or do you want to do it?
It's fine with me, sure.
I'm good either way. I mean, I thought, part of me was thinking from that perspective, if this doesn't even make it to the capital plan, then the in-depth discussion maybe doesn't make sense.
It's all part of it.
Before we hear from Sal?
No, not necessarily. I mean, we can go either way. I mean, if Sal's ready to talk to us about it, I'm fine. He can give us the detailed version of what Jeff had given us on Friday about what this is, which is basically clustering the science rooms to be able to cluster the students from grade levels and things of that perspective a little bit more efficiently.
Do you want me to go? I mean, I can do this in 3 minutes. So everybody should have a copy. I also emailed everybody on the board too, so you should have that in front of you. Maybe the pictures show up a little bit better. But as you know, this is one of several requests that we have, including the curtains, Mr. Oakes. But this one has to do with the science rooms. And if you look, all of the requests are going to meet the district goals for enhancing the culture, learning and design and physical virtual space. So I just sort of put a couple of bullets in there, create a smaller school within a larger school. As you know, the difference between a middle school and a junior high school sometimes is the setup. Our school is mostly set up like a middle school, except because the science rooms are in their own wing. That's a junior high model from 1969 when the building was built. And a real middle school setup would have an ELA classroom, a social studies classroom, a science classroom, a math classroom, and maybe a world language classroom in the same area so that students would only sort of travel within that area. So right now we don't have that because of the science rooms, but this proposal makes it such that the science rooms would be on a wing with sixth grade right now. Of course, increasing the options for seating and arrangements to meet space goals. And then we, because of enrollment, we actually eliminated a science position. So we have more science rooms than we do teachers. And if you look at the product projections, it doesn't look like that position is coming back anytime soon. So right now, in one of the science rooms, we have a special education teacher that's in there. And we're grateful for the space. As you know, special education teachers and students are usually learning in, sometimes it's closets or spaces that were intended for closets. So that would help us there. But you go to the next page. Basically, the current status is the science classrooms are located on the first floor in sixth grade while all the other core classes are on the second floor for sixth grade. The size of the current science rooms are 588 square feet, whereas the reconfigured rooms, the proposal is it's at least double, the 1,100 square feet and 1,000 square feet. Those areas that I'm proposing, if you remember the old library, those are the two, and then it became a computer lab, and then it became an innovation space. Right now, those are large spaces. We can get, if we can get the gas up there and the plumbing up there, that would give us a lot of space. And of course, you know, age, condition, and arrangements of the science classrooms. You know, you're looking at 51-year-old cabinets, et cetera. So if you go to the next page, if you look, I sort of highlighted, where you see what's important on this page is the yellow. The yellow highlighted, all of those rooms are current sixth grade rooms. And so those are all the current core classrooms on the second floor. If you look at the yellow below, on the first floor, that's where the science rooms are now. They would be located where the green is on the top. So you'd see all the yellow together. Make sense? Next page, don't worry about the blue or the red. Next page, basically if you look at the rooms, this is pretty self-explanatory. You have, you know, worn cabinets, multiple cracked countertops. You know, we glued them, we put them back together, but they're missing some locks and drawers. The floor space is limited the way it's set up, and I can show you the difference between that if you compare this to, say, the next page. Let's go to the next page. I think that's another. Oh, you have the next page has the current limited board space. Remember the old boards that go up and down? And you can see they've been replaced with smart boards. There's only a little bit of space to be able to write on the boards there. You have some limited floor space where you have cabinets that are in the way of the instruction. And then you go to sort of the new space where it says newer current science rooms. Those are the rooms that were built in 1995. So the actual, I mean, it's all instructional space, but the direct, I suppose, instructional space is in the front and the labs are in the back. I think that's how Berlin High is now. Is that accurate? Berlin High has labs in the back. So that's what they did 25 years ago. And we could do something like that in our in the rooms that I'm proposing. And if you just go to the last page, that shows you, it's better if you see it in person, but these are the two rooms, and you can see that they're larger spaces that would be converted to science rooms. And then if we realize this vision, you look on the last page, it just summarizes what I talked about. Talking about location, space, and really meeting the adequate needs. This would also require a demolition of 3 science rooms right now, which would be flipped to world language rooms. The demolition of the science rooms that are not necessary would also support the fact that world language would be in 7th and 8th grade where it belongs. And I think the demolition is probably much less expensive than the reconfiguration of the science rooms upstairs. But that's one of the projects. Any questions?
Thank you, Sal.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Sal specifically? Well, I appreciate all the time and effort that it put this together. Thank you, Sal. Then we have a motion that's been seconded. Any other discussion on the capital plan in any way? Questions, comments? No? Hearing none? Then we have a motion, and it's been seconded. So all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it passes. Thank you very much. Actually, Jeff, now you're actually up again with the new, do you have anything in addition to talk about? Okay. So we're then going to skip by the facility-related update because that was all part of what you just did for capital. Next up then is the official district enrollment report.
Yeah, so you have a copy of the enrollment report in your packet, but as an overall, our enrollment is down 47 students as compared to last year, which is 1.72%. This enrollment goes along the projections of the Prada report, which we subscribe to every year, as well as the NEASC report that we subscribe to also. So we expected to be close to that, maybe a little closer to 2,700, but it was expected to have a little dip. And, last year was 46 students, and this year it's 47.
I know that there's been a lot of talk about new developments going in, but I've lost track of all of them. There were a whole bunch for quite a while. Does anybody know, have any of these new developments come to fruition? There was talk for a while of a very large new development in East Berlin going in, but I don't know where that landed.
I'm not aware of the one in East Berlin.
The one near Pistol Creek is, I think, currently in litigation.
Okay. So nothing is imminent in any case that's going to impact our enrollment for next year in any case.
What about the downtown space by the train station?
It is going to have some living facilities above all the businesses and restaurants that are supposed to go in there.
Do we know how many units or the impact, potential impact? Projected?
We had the one near the train station, but there also was one behind the Acura dealership. And I don't know,
Yes.
I don't know where that one is at this point.
Well, there's construction going on.
Right, so
Yeah.
that one's,
So it should be done probably next year.
So it might have impact on us a year from now. Who knows where it is? Okay. We'll have to keep an eyes on all those projects. And I think I saw that the one near the Berlin's, the Steel Center, I think is what they're calling it. I want to say that I remember they said there were going to be 75 residences, but maybe I'm making that up. I can't remember if that's accurate or not. That seems like a lot, so maybe I'm mistaken. I'm confusing them. All right, thank you very much. Next up is the District Continuous Improvement Plan. Dr. McGurk?
One. Tonight, in your packet, you have a copy of the draft of the District Continuous Improvement Plan for 2021. And unlike in the past several years when most of the plan has been new steps, new strategies, new initiatives, you'll see that many of the action steps and areas of focus are actually ones that we've carried over from last year. Last year, we were making very good progress towards implementing the action steps that were in the plan that you approved in October last year. And unfortunately, because of the global pandemic, many of those action strategies did not come to complete fulfillment during the last year. What you'll see in the plan is somewhat streamlined from last year. We did look carefully at the various action strategies to see which ones we wanted to carry over to the new year, and made a small number of adjustments to focus our efforts on the work that we're doing right now, both in our hybrid teaching models at the middle school and high school, and in preparation for potentially going to a digital learning environment at some point, a distance learning environment at some point in this year. Some of the changes you'll see are variations of work that we've already started. So for example, we've already started training staff in Ruler. Last year, we sent 2 teams to online training, or excuse me, to in-person training at Yale. All of that training is now being offered online. So we have a team scheduled to go from McGee Middle School who will participate in online training after the first of the year. We also have a number of teachers across the district who have signed up for the 10-hour SEL course that the state has been very much promoting. In many of the other areas, you'll see slight tweaks. For example, in the area of assessment, we already had an action strategy looking at our assessment practices, and we've modified it slightly to include making recommendations for assessment in a digital learning environment. So this draft went through the Administrative Council last week, who's moving it forward to you for potential approval tonight. And I think that what you'll see is essentially staying the course and continuing some of the good work that was started last year.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? Actually, we have a motion first, and then we can, oh no, where am I looking here? Yes, we do have a motion, I'm sorry. And then we can have a conversation or discussion if we need. Anybody?
Move to approve the District Continuous Improvement Plan 2020 to 2021 as presented.
I'll second.
Second by Jamie Shibicha. Okay, conversation, questions, comments for Aaron?
Just
Adam?
quickly, I mean, it's just a general comment. I mean, obviously the pandemic has put us back. I mean, we're doing extremely well, don't get me wrong. Just out of curiosity, I mean, is there anything that, because of the pandemic, that we've lost any traction on, or are we able just to pick up where we left off? Any areas of concern, I guess?
I wouldn't identify them as areas of concern. I would say that we worked really hard in the time that we had curriculum development time in the spring of last year to try to identify best practice strategies for moving forward into the fall, and we shifted some curriculum development money that we would typically spend this June back to spending money in August to support some of that work moving forward. We've had very strong support from our library media specialists and our tech integration specialists in providing additional training. Today was a professional learning day, and they ran sessions all day long. And a number of those sessions are really both meeting the needs that are existing right now and also looking ahead to the possibility of us going into a full distance learning model and making sure that we're targeting additional strategies and methods of supporting all students in that environment. So I wouldn't say that we're behind. I think that we've been very planful and thoughtful in terms of the work that we've done moving forward. Certainly the work that the board did in supporting the move to one-on-one technology really helped us last year, and the district investment in tech integration specialists and in advanced level training for our staff in technology areas has really helped us have people on staff that can provide the necessary training for our teachers.
And I think you answered the question already in the beginning, but I was going to ask if the pandemic had shifted your thought process with anything that you thought was a priority previously, but now it's shifted. But it sounds like even with from a funding standpoint for professional development, stacking that up early on in the year, that was one adjustment that was made.
Yes, I would say we actually have fewer people obviously going out to conferences, but we do have a number of people who have signed on. We just had 2 staff members who signed on to an online course offered at Harvard that we were able to, I think one thing that the number of hours that our teachers have spent on Zoom has done is has made them much more comfortable signing up for online courses and looking for those opportunities. And honestly, given the sub situation right now, we're grateful for teachers that are willing to learn in the evenings or the weekends or on their own time because it's so difficult to get subs in the schools right now.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Aaron? No? Okay, then let's take a vote on it. We've got a motion. It's been seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much, Aaron. Next up, we're going to set the time for the Friday evening Berlin High School graduation ceremonies. So let's start off. If you could explain why we need to set the time so early in the year, because it seems very early for a graduation conversation.
We need to set the time for 2 reasons. One, it's appropriate for people to plan and know what time it is, but the other piece is for planning where we might potentially have that graduation, and that knowing that moving it from a different location, as we said in a different board meeting, that Welty Hall is not available at that time, but if we were likelihood to have it here, what time would it be at? So that's the real rationale of why we need to look at that time now, and we told the parents that we would have that time out to them.
So if I remember correctly, we set graduation date in the last meeting, in the last board meeting, and Welty Hall is available for that particular evening. So now we have to make sure, do we already know the times that Welty is available? Like, do they have a certain range that they're available in the evening but not in the afternoons? Do we know that at all? Eileen, would you mind go on the microphone? I'm sorry, Eileen.
Welty, my understanding is Welty's available to us all day. So
Okay.
all day, all evening.
Do you, obviously, well, we have to make a motion, but we can't put a motion there until we have a time to plug into the motion. So what's your personal preference?
I would prefer to see something within the hours of 4 to 6 p.m. So as far as like a start time. I can give rationale if you'd like that.
Sure.
So part of my thinking is our ceremony is typically about an hour and a half max. We're pretty good about keeping it between an hour to an hour and a half. I do feel like if you offer something between the hours of 4 and 6 o'clock for a start time, it provides time afterwards for families to do something together and then, potentially they have the weekend to do other things. When you start to move things later, there really isn't time to do anything beforehand with your family, nor is there some time to do something afterwards with your family, because then you're running so late, it's just getting too late. So from a family standpoint, I think that if we do something, a start time between the hours of 4 and 6, it would provide people an opportunity to work most of the day. They might have to leave a little bit early or could at least work a half day. So trying to be sensitive to people, obviously for families that work as well, would be important for us. And that would also provide us time to have school out, because if you recall, right now, our last day for our other students, we still have students in school that day, but we would have plenty of time after school to make the proper arrangements.
That would be a day during final exam week, would it not? Or no, actually, it's the week before, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay.
So if we're counting right, our other students would all still be in class
And
till 2:10.
it would be a full day for them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does anybody want to, go ahead, Adam.
I just, and I'm glad you said that time frame. I kept thinking about like 4 o'clock, myself personally, just because if you have an hour and a half ceremony and people want to take pictures afterwards outside with their family, it's still light out. I think 4 o'clock's a good time in between. I know that there was a comment that I had heard from somebody that said, 4 o'clock is tough with traffic and getting out of work and everything, but I'm also reminded at McGee, I think the 8th grade promotion is at 9 a.m. or something like that, isn't it?
Is that on that same day?
It's early. All I'm saying is with proper planning, almost a year out, I think people can make accommodations. I'd be fine with 4 o'clock if that's, as long as that gives the teachers that would be participating in the graduation ceremony enough time to get out of school and get over there.
What about teachers that might be elementary and middle that don't get out quite as early? Elementary might be out at 3:30.
True.
Or 3, I'm not sure, I'm sorry, I don't know what time the elementaries get out in town. 3:45. So I'm hoping that some of them would like to be able to attend the ceremony as well.
I would love for them
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
come. I really think, graduation is a culmination of
It's
a
the town.
K-12 effort, and it'd be great to have additional faculty members come from across the entire district.
I would hate to put a burden on the elementary schools trying to find coverage for people
Sure.
at the last minute to let people get out in time to get to Central. What about maybe 5 o'clock instead of 4 o'clock? Would that still give us enough time to do what we need to do and get the people there?
What's the difference?
Adam, is that?
Hey,
okay with-
that's why we have the conversation. I agree,
That's why I'm
yeah.
bringing it up in case anybody else has other ideas.
Nope.
I'm all ears.
It makes sense.
Do we want to have a motion in for 5 o'clock?
Read the motion, hold on.
Read the motion, I would think, and then just fill in 5 o'clock.
Yep, I just need to get it. Okay, so I move to set the time for Friday evening BHS graduation ceremonies to begin at 5 o'clock PM.
I'll second.
Need a second from Jamie. So any further discussion about 5 PM, either positives or negatives, anybody? No? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, 5 o'clock graduation it is. Thank you very much, Eileen. All right. Next up is the charges for the Committee on Equity and Social Justice. We had some conversations last meeting about this as well. At the September 28th board meeting, we got 3 volunteers to form an ad hoc committee. That would be Carrie, Julia, and Mary Ellen. And they met with Aaron McGurk and came up with charges for the Committee on Equity, right? Yep. And Brian, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to leave you out, Brian. I apologize. So would a member of the 3 of the ad hoc committee like to speak a little bit about what you got accomplished?
I have to remember first off.
It is in our Schoology.
Okay,
I'll start.
thank you.
So we met, and we went through the document that was presented to us at our last board workshop, and we just went, and that was from NSBA, right, National School Board Association. And we went through it and just made revisions to what the needs of Berlin Public Schools are, because, rather than taking a generic document. So Carrie, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I guess we just talked about the the potential function of the committee in facilitating communication, and hopefully inviting members of our larger Berlin community into the fold to inform some of the decisions, so that they are, responsive and also proactive, I guess. But also kind of making recommendations to our superintendent with respect to policies and procedures as they relate to this charge.
Was so there was a discussion on who might serve on the committee? Not individual people per se, but just in general, that this is a community involvement?
Just talking about the potential for there to be a call out to the larger community to have folks serve on such. So we didn't really craft a plan for such, we just brainstormed about that.
And we also talked about having a diverse group of stakeholders involved, not just all, recent graduates or, people from certain subgroups within the community. We want to make sure that we're getting all the different groups.
And leaders from the community. So potentially we just brainstormed, like I said, there might be religious leaders, there might be community leaders of other sorts who could help to inform our thinking.
I think it's important, though, that the document that was drafted, that we worked on, was something that could be shared with anyone that has interest to be on the committee. It kind of refined where we are, or where the board is, and gave us directions of who should be on the advisory committee, what the focus of the advisory areas of focus could be, and the goals for the committee. So I think it helped us to give a framework if we're asking people to be on this committee, what is this committee going to do, and what's the message we're going to carry. So I found it very helpful.
Can this document be shared out through the website, be available for people that want to look at it to find out what they're getting
I
into?
think that's the purpose of why we're here tonight.
Right.
So the larger board can say, we recognize the document, we accept the document, and we're okay with it being shared out.
Right, I mean, there's no motion on the table
Right.
specifically in our minutes, but obviously, we're looking for input from everybody. Hopefully, you all got a chance to take a look at it. I want to thank the 3 members of the board who volunteered their time to work on this, along with the district administration. Does anybody have any ideas, comments, questions on the document that's in front of you? It's fairly long. I don't want to read it into the record because it is fairly long, and once we decide on it, we want to put it out there for everybody to see. No? That side of the table, nothing? Are we okay sharing this publicly, putting it on the website, I'm assuming?
Yep.
Yes? Anybody have reservations?
No, and thank you to those that worked on it, too.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
It's a wonderful document.
So this gives us some direction to where we're going to move now. So Brian, once we put this out there on the website, what do you think the next step is going to be for the district?
Well, I think the next step has to look at, who should be on the advisory committee, and then if people reach out to us, or I think the other part we talked about is actually reaching out to that diverse group. So it's not just people that are interested in being on, but really looking for a diverse cross-section of Berlin in the community to be on the committee.
I like that. I want people who want to be there, but also recruiting people who have something to offer, who might not normally step up in those situations, or who might not feel comfortable offering themselves up publicly, but getting their voices heard as well.
Well, I think it's easier with the documents I said to say, we're having this advisory committee, here's the goals of the committee, this is going to be the focus, and are you interested? And this document serves that purpose.
All right, thank you very much to everybody. Then we're agreed that we're going to be posting this on the website, and the next step is going to be to form the committee to do the work. Next up, we do have a motion on this. The board is going to discuss delegating an impartial hearing officer for student discipline, residency, and transportation hearings. Do you want to address this, Brian?
Sure. So typically in a residency hearing or a disciplinary hearing, it's typically members of the board that sit as a hearing. We want to be able to have the option to have an impartial hearing officer, should we need to, where it wouldn't allow the board not to sit and to make judgment, but would allow the hearing officer to. This may not take place in the near future, or it may, but we were advised it'd be good to go into record and to have it in record that we could use this as an option should the board choose to allow a hearing officer to take the place of the board.
Do we have well, we do have a motion in front of you. Would somebody like to make the motion?
I'll take it, Rich.
Go ahead.
I move to approve Elisa Barrett as the impartial hearing officer. Bartlett, I'm sorry, let me start over. I move to approve Elisa Bartlett as the impartial hearing officer for, 1, school accommodation hearings, including transportation, under Connecticut General Statutes 10-186, and 2, student expulsion hearings under Connecticut General Statutes 10-233D et sec, including hearings relating to expungement of expulsion decisions for the 2020-2021 school year.
I'll second.
Seconded by Adam. Can I just ask, who is Eliza Bartlett?
I was going to ask that.
She's an attorney
Okay.
who acts in that capacity. And the thought is simply that at some times the board is put in a position to pass judgment on other members of the community, and that can be a difficult place to be. So having this option avails an opportunity for someone to step in for the board and to make that impartial decision on it doesn't mean that it couldn't be appealed or anything else, but they would step in for the board where the board would not have to be making that decision.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions for Brian on this?
Just
Tim?
a continued curiosity about the selection of the person. I don't know her from anyone. Is there a process to become certified in this that she is part of, or how does that?
I know that she's worked with other districts in the same capacity. I would not know anything further than that about her.
Okay.
And, there is a potential residency issue that we were thinking that we would have a hearing for. I've been in conversations with Rich about it, and that's really the rationale of why we put this on here at this time. I don't know if that meeting is actually going to take place, that residency hearing, but that was the premise of putting it here at this time.
And I believe what we talked about was if we ever needed to have a residency hearing, normally you have a 10-day window. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
So having a procedure and a person in place would help that greatly.
Yes. The purpose is, if we had the hearing within 10 days, it would have been prior to the board meeting. In order to have a hearing officer in this manner, we would have had to have an emergency board meeting and get it approved to make that happen. So the thought was, regardless whether we have the hearing or not, to put it on the agenda that allows us to go through the year. If it's needed, it's available. But obviously, in conversations before I would use an impartial hearing officer, I would have conversations with the board chair to say, is this the direction we want to go, or do we want to have the hearing? With board members sitting in attendance.
And I have one additional question, but I don't want to steal it. If anybody else has, Tim?
I guess I would just want to verify that the board, as it sits presently, and we'll ask it again in a month, does not know Eliza Bartlett in order to preserve her impartiality. So
I don't even know if she's local, quite frankly.
looks
I
like-
don't have any idea. Nope, never heard of her.
so
As is evident
I
by
would
the
just
fact that
ask
you
if
couldn't
anybody on
pronounce
the
her name.
right.
Yes.
So if anybody on the board does know her or have a conflict of interest with her, that we would come forth and speak as such.
I also provide the board with a background and a resume of who she is and what she does, if that's what the board would like. I mean, she is referred by Shipman and Goodwin as someone that works in this capacity in other districts throughout the state. So it did come with a reference.
Yeah, and I'm fine. I mean, I think the less we know about her, the better, probably, in that situation.
My follow-up question is
As long as
actually
she's
financial. If we don't need her, is there an obligation? Are we on the hook for a financial obligation?
Not at all. It's just to avail the option. We're not financially, if there's no hearing and we never ask her, it's not like she's on a retainer or
Okay,
anything. of
that's
that
what I was
nature.
curious
No,
about.
Not at all.
Okay. Anything else on this before we vote? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. And the last item now, we're going to actually move into executive session. We're going to have a motion to move into executive session to discuss attorney-client privilege communication. We will be, the premise is that we will be back. The anticipation is that we're going to close out on executive session, come back, and perhaps have an actionable item. Not really sure where it's going to lead. Okay, so we will be coming back and then potentially having some action at the end. I would like to have a motion for all of us to go to executive session and invite Brian, and I'd like the athletic director as well. Would somebody like to?
I will move to go into executive session to discuss an attorney-client privilege communication, inviting the superintendent and the athletic director.
I'll second.
Seconded by Jamie. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, everybody. We will be back potentially with some action afterwards.
Still be here to report.
Yeah, they're going to have to be. Hopefully, I don't think it'll be long. I don't think it'll be very long, but we will have to come back. I'm going to. Yeah.
Fine, Julia.
We can trust people?
Thank you very much. The board is back from its executive session, and I believe we have a motion for consideration in front of us.
Move that the board authorize the administration for the Berlin Public Schools to loan football equipment owned by the Berlin Public Schools to students enrolled at Berlin High School for their personal use for the period October 14th, 2020 through December 21st, 2020, in accordance with procedures established by the administration, provided that the administration shall advise the parents or legal guardians of any student seeking to borrow such equipment that any personal use of such equipment does not constitute a school district activity, has no affiliation with the Berlin Public Schools, and provided further that the parents or legal guardians of any student seeking to borrow such equipment must sign and submit the notice of risk, waiver, and informed consent document provided by the administration in order to borrow such equipment.
That's a heck of a motion.
Yes.
Anybody want to second it?
Second.
Okay, motion's been moved and seconded. Any discussion, comments? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Do I have a move to adjourn, please?
I'll move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, everyone. And we're out.